Alright, hello everyone, Mark Sejan again, and today we will just jump from ZBrush to Blender and discuss how to set up things in order to test your files if everything is fine and working properly. Okay, so here's our 3D mesh. This has a couple of subdivisions, 5, namely the resolution is about 2 million, which one is a good average for a simple character like this. This is a single mesh model, nothing crazy going on. If we turn off the polypaint, this is how the polypaint looks like. Shift F will show the basics, and these are the polygroups we have. Okay, so polygroups a few, and if we walk down, this is how it looks. Now the model is exported through the Z plugin, so Z plugin and Subtool Master and Export. And when this one was exported, this single polygroup for each subtool was turned on. So that means the polygroups are ignored and it comes as a single mesh. So it's not split. And export is a single file. Now it doesn't really matter because it's a single subtool. So no worries about that. So this is the method to export. So let me just check how it works with Blender. So here, this is a default Blender file. If we check the units, we have meters, and this is a 2x2 cube. Okay, so just to test it, file and import the wavefront OBJ, and we have this chameleon mesh OBJ, which one is small in size. And as you see right away, this mesh is within the 2 meter boundaries. So if you see that the mesh is overly sized and 10 times bigger than this, let me hit Alt Z to make it see through. So if it's 10 times bigger than this, and basically the cube looks like a head, then you may want to choose Unify. This is one option. So if it doesn't work, wear deformation and Unify, and it will resize your figure. Or if you have multiple subtools and you want to resize them all together, you can go with the subtool, where are you? Scale Master and ZBrush Scale Unify. Okay, so this is a little bit hidden. You have to remember this, but this is a great feature. Or you can use a scale and using this option to scale everything, but that's a manual way. Okay, so this is how it works. Now, once we have this exported and everything is running fine, let me delete the cube, select the figure, and check this. Now, if the mesh is, if it receives an unusual name or a name that's coming from ZBrush, that's happening because you haven't named properly your file. So name it properly, name the export properly, so make it clean. Now it's time to think of the textures. So let me just walk up using D and look for the textures. So Shift F, and this is the polypaint. The texture should look like this. Now this texture is already created, but I can just simply go and hit create. Now this is at the highest resolution, and I can print new from polypaint. And there we go. Now this texture needs to be flipped. Okay, so if you just export it, it won't work. So if you see that something is off in here when you try to use it, this is because you haven't flipped. To flip it, you have to clone and go to brush, the texture. Just to make it easy, I will drop it in here, texture, and flip, and then hit export. And then we can export. Here's a test file. So I will export it. So I will just export it as color, just to not confuse. So color, okay, that's it. And then we have the properly flipped option. Okay, here don't get confused. Here's just because you have flipped the texture itself in here, it doesn't automatically update. This is like, again, this is like a buffer. So if you want to switch it, you have to come in here, pick again, and then it flips. Okay, so this is when you forget to flip. This may look like this in Blender as well. So now we have the right texture. So it's time to go to shading mode and just look things up. And here it is. I have Node Wrangler enabled. If you don't have it, you can go File, Preferences, Add-ons, and Wrangler, Node Wrangler. And if you press Control-T with Node Wrangler, and you have the model selected, sorry, the material selected, then it will show up. Okay, I haven't named the material. I will name it from default matte to Chameleon matte. And there we go. And of course, we want to use our texture. Now we have UVs. We will use vector, nothing really crazy, and just hitting open and look for the chameleon color TIFF. And this should look like this. Okay, so there we are. The texture now is visible, and UVs are correct, so everything is fine. But be careful, because we have to use shade smooth for sure, because otherwise the thing is faceted. Okay, so don't forget to use the shade smooth option. All right, so this is a simple single mesh. I have wireframe on quick preferences. Where are you, wireframe? There are. Here we go. Geometry. If you press right click, you can add to quick favorites, and this is why I'm using this, because this should have a dedicated hotkey in all manner. So this is a feature that I really miss from Blender, but here we are. Okay, so layout. And if we go, we have now material preview, and that's it. Now, how to make it look like as high res as we have in the sculpt. So no doubt we have to have a subdivision modifier. So I'm pressing Ctrl 1, and when Ctrl 1 is pressed, it will assign a new subdivision surface modifier. Now here we have the render resolution. The render resolution is set to 2. The displacement was generated, and it's generated at level 5. So let me go back to ZBrush and see, where are you? And let me turn this off and go and check it. So we have 5 levels. And when we are creating the displacement, we are creating it on the lowest level, but it will calculate with all the rest of the levels above. So it's time to go to displacement map, and let me just create displacement map. Nothing is on, basically. I will just turn it on, create displacement map. And yeah, textures automatically turned on. I will just remove that, and or flip it back, because I want to see it nicely in here. So that's where we are. Now the model is in a lower res, so it is in low res, but the displacement map is turned on, and there's an intensity slider. So if you scale your model or do something like that, intensity slider, this is just a preview, like a bump map. Okay, so this intensity slider can throw off things, but basically the texture looks like this. Let me show this in bigger. Okay, so when we are exporting, again, we are cloning this, and this will become and land in an alpha. So we have to go to alphas, flip V, hit export, and I'm just using the simple TIFF and test here, and that will be displacement. Okay, so that is the process. I have this map generated already, so I have it here, and this is where we will call it and use it from. All right, let me go back to Blender and see what we can do. So the render resolution should be at 5. This would be relatively slow, so technically it should be 5, but just because I'm recording a video, I will just lower it to 4, and that may speed up the rendering quite a lot in this case. I have a Lenovo computer for now. Okay, so what else? We have to have a displace modifier, and the displace modifier will just throw off things. So what's happening? We have no texture yet, so I'm clicking on new and loading the texture, opening it up, and this is the displacement texture. Now it's even worse. Okay, so let me go back to the settings of the modifier itself and see what we have. The coordinates we are using is actually the UV. We have UV generated, and the intensity is way too high, so I will just crank it down to about 0.1, and that is working much better. Even that mid-level should be 0.5, it should be okay. So the mid-level was 0.5, I guess, in here. Yep, mid 0.5. So we have darker and lighter tones, but the intensity, the strength is 0.05, I guess. And that will give a little bit better impression. So to adjust it easier without rendering, what I suggest you to do to increase the levels in the viewport. And when you have a little bit higher level, you can adjust it a little bit more, a little bit better. So this was the original in here. Let me turn off displacement because it's getting too much. So this was the original, and this is the generated. Okay, I think it looks quite good with the 0.05. Reduce the levels of view, and for sure we want to tune up things. Okay, so there we are. The color is different because I have a slightly other version that I've created a video, but this is an older version of the texture. And okay, so what's next? We have to set up the camera. Let me press 0 and choose the rendering algorithm. So rendering algorithm should be cycles, and I don't want to waste too much energy and effort on creating test renders, so I'm reducing the amount of samples. And of course we don't want to just for adjustments using too much calculating power. So 600 by 800, and lock camera to view. You can do this lock camera to view here as well. So now we can zooming in. And okay, camera looks to be off. Okay, so for this character, I don't like the strong perspective. So let me go and select the camera. Where are you, camera? And then we can adjust the focal length to a somewhat more realistic value. So then we surely have to zoom out a bit. This figure is now, it's not really standing on the ground, so let me just leave camera mode and go to front and G and Z and going up and make it stand on the ground. Just for receiving shadows, I will create a simple plane, so Shift A, MP, and grab this plane and making it a little bit bigger. Alright, so then going back to camera and adjusting the camera. And the plane will rotate it around, so to have a little bit nicer edge. I don't want to see that corner. There we go. Zoom in and Q lock camera and just zoom out slightly, because yes, that was my concern, that the figure is just cropped by the layout. Okay, I'm turning this, I'm looking more from the bottom just because there will be an environment map, and that's time to check the environment map. And also the light, that may be wrong, so let me just quickly test this. Function key 12 and quickly test this and pause the render, pause the record. Okay, so about 8 seconds, this is what we have. As you see, the details are coming back, but the model actually is low resolution, so we can rig it, you can use rigify, whatever. The process is the same in every other application. You have a base mesh, you have the textures, and normal map is not there yet, so we will add normal maps as well. This is only just displacement map and 14 seconds for the test render, which one is kind of good. Okay, let me go to shading and see if we can add the normal map. So Shift A, S, and normal. And there we are, and Shift A, S, and texture map, image texture, sorry. And there we are. So we are linking the normal to here and using the map. Where are you? Chameleon normal, and look at here. So there it is. Maybe we are switching to linear and strength. So if the strength is a little bit higher, of course it's much stronger as an effect. So you can crank it up. You don't have to be very accurate on keeping it at level 1. I'll increase it to 0.5. That adds a little bit more. time to check the environment, the worlds, view and frame all. Okay, we can shift A as env environment texture, link it to the color and open one and Uffizi probe, and this is mirror ball. Okay, so we are going to layout and go into rendering mode and see it ourselves what's going on. Okay, right, so the light is the original light is coming from the back, so let me just press this and test the rendering. That was the last frame time. We are now about 10. It's fairly slow. Okay. The normal map is fairly strong on 1.5, so everything is popping. We can reduce it if we wish, but that's how it goes. Okay, so now the model is there. Export is complete. We can fine-tune the overall. Let me just rotate this around to choose a little bit more neutral background. Maybe the strength of the environment should be a little bit lower. So background strength 0.5, and see in the layout function key 12, and let me see what's going on here. So with a different render. And is it updating? Yes, already. So that was 24 seconds. Because of displacement, because normals, because the environment, it can add up a lot. Okay, but this is looking quite neutral. I will give it a try to set it with one level of the normal. So going back to object and view and frame all, and just select the model. And where are you? Okay, so strength set to 1, and I will quickly just restart the render and see it for myself. So testing can take up a lot of time. This is why it's better if you just reduce the stress on the machine and keep small sized renders with low quality settings, just for testing purposes, of course. Okay. All right, so that is the figure itself. We can add a material on the backdrop on the bottom. So let me just select this guy and new material and floor, and there will be nothing crazy. It will be just a simple pale color. So the pale color that's somewhat similar to the ground we have. So I'm using E and pick the color from here, and going back to camera view and function key 12 to start. And see the final. Okay, it's showing up. So the colors are there, details are there, and what you actually have is a low resolution model. So if you compare this one with the layout, what we have in the layout, this figure. So let me go in solid mode and see it, and Q and wireframe. So this is our actual model. We can edit, we can create the bones and all the stuff. So if we are in edit mode, this is how it looks. We have a few modifiers, and I will turn off the visibility in edit mode. And yes, that's the actual number of points for the model. So function key 11 is generating, showing the last render frame. And we have, if we turn on statistics here, then we will see that we have about 8K of faces. All right, so thank you very much, and have fun. See you next time. Goodbye.